Okay, so these dreams happened this week, but it was several nights ago, and so the details might be kind of fuzzy. It's definitely not the same as recording it right after you wake up. But I love doing dream journaling because it has helped me so much with being able to go lucid. And also, the more I do video dream recording, the more I remember my dreams. And the more I remember my dreams, the more lucid I become in my dreams. And the more lucid I become, the more fun I have, the more therapy I get from my dreams, the more things that I learn, and the more interesting my dreams become. So, I'm gonna try this from the last few days. I have this experience like this one. I don't even know if this one was a dream because man, this one was freaky. I was laying in my bed. Well, actually, not laying in my bed. I was asleep, and I hear my lover call me from the living room, and I'm like, what? I don't want to come in the living room. I'm happily asleep. Quit bothering me. But they keep calling me and they're like, "Come on. Get your ass in here. I got something to show you. This is really important. It'll only take a second. Just please get up and listen to what I have to say." And I'm like, "Oh, fine." So I get up, and this is really weird. I have right next to me is my closet, and the doors are mirrors. And so I get up, I look in the mirror, and then I go like this with my hands, and I squat down, and I go ha ha ha, and I do all these weird breathing exercises, and I go, I am open to, I am open to, and I think I say communication and something like to this like I don't know. I do some weird freaky shit, and then I stand up and look at myself, and as if that never happened, I go back to normal. I turn and I walk down the hall to the living room, and everything is completely dark. And I check the time, and it's exactly midnight, and it's pitch black in there. And then I go and I sit down on my fancy antique chair in there, and then instead of my lover being there, there's a freaking there's a gray man, a gray. It's this alien, and the alien isn't necessarily in the room with me either. So I'm not sure how I saw it. I just perhaps saw him in my mind, and the way I pictured it was kind of the typical way aliens are depicted, with like the big head, the weird big eyes, and the tiny slits for nose, and tiny little mouth, and tiny little alien body. But it wasn't in there with me. It had this voice, though, that filled the entire room, and it filled my body, and it was terrifying. This voice, the voice was actually one of the most terrifying dream experiences I've ever had. I've never been terrified by a sound or a voice in this way. It was high pitched and low pitched at the same time, and it kind of sounded like metal scraping on things, and it gave me the chills, and it just talked at me very forcefully. And when I was in the chair, I was completely paralyzed. I realized that I couldn't move. I couldn't move my jaw. I couldn't move. It was almost like I had sleep paralysis. Um, it talked at me, and I don't remember what it was saying, but it was this constant stream of information. And there was this strange, like opaque black glowingness. It kind of reminded me of the colors and things that you see if you close your eyes like this and you cover your eyes with your hands and like rub your eyes around and you see all those weird shapes and colors. And it came and it like went into my thoracic cavity, and my everything in here felt like squeezed. Like all of a sudden I was wearing this very tightly wrapped corset, and it was very difficult to breathe. And that made me very panicked because I couldn't. It makes me panicked thinking about it. I couldn't take a full breath, and all the while it's still talking at me, and it's giving me all these information bits, and kind of answering all the questions that I'd ever wondered about alien life. Like, yes, we're here. Of course we're here. We've been here. The only thing I actually remember them telling me is answering why they don't contact us, why they don't answer any efforts of us to contact them, and why we will never mesh, and why we will never be on the same plane, why we'll never work together, why we'll never integrate whatsoever. They said, you are not circles. And that was very serious, very fucking serious. You are not circles. And you, as in the human race, you are not circles. Therefore, you won't understand. We won't interact with you because you're not circles. And since you're not circles, you are very beneath us. You are just animals. And in the dream, I felt like a wild animal must feel like when it's forced to interact with a human. Very unsure, very scared. Like, I don't know if you're going to try to pet me or eat me or torture me to death or I don't know. Who knows what? It was terrifying, but I felt like an animal. That's the best I can describe this feeling. It's a feeling I've never felt before. Very scared, very inferior, and just terrified. Yeah, you are not circles. And then I suddenly woke up in my bed, and I woke up in real waking life, and it was a full moon night, and so there was lots of light coming into the bedroom, and I was just covered in goosebumps, and it kept happening. I'd get these waves upon waves of goosebumps. That's never happened. It was very interesting. And my thoracic cavity still had that feeling of being squeezed. It was much less intense than it was in this dream vision, but still. And the inside of my throat felt really scratchy, felt, I don't know, very like I'd swallowed a bunch of hot steel wool scrub brushes or something. Oh, and also I was voraciously hungry, like so hungry I was nauseous, and I felt like I was going to throw up just because of hunger. Very strange. And I ate a very large meal before I had gone to bed, and I'd only been asleep for maybe an hour, so there's no way that I could or should be that hungry as I was. And and so I checked the time in real waking life, and it was 12:01. Very strange. Very, very strange. So I was laying there looking at my goosebumps, thinking how strange everything was, and then there was a big thud somewhere in the house that rattled the whole house. Scared me witless. And I woke up my lover, and I was like, did you hear that? And they were like, what? No, go back to sleep. You were just dreaming. And I said, no, I wasn't. It shook the whole house. That was a really big noise. And they still were like, whatever, nope. I, they claimed that they were awake. And so there was no way that there was a sound because they didn't hear it. That wasn't true. And although I do talk in my sleep a lot and I do a lot of weird things, granted, I was very sure that something had happened. And so since they weren't going to go check it out, I got out of bed. I tiptoed down the hallway, and I was very, very sure that it was one of my cats that jumped up on the counter, like they do very often while we're sleeping, to go and try to rifle through things and get food. And I got up and I tiptoed down the hallway and I'm like cursing at my cats. I'm like, you dang cats, you're such bad cats, you bad, bad cats. Because I think I was also kind of trying to convince myself that it was the cats. And I was also trying to give whoever the cats warning that I was coming down the hallway and they better behave. And I get to the living room, and then from the top of the cat tree, one sleepyhead pops up and another sleepyhead pops up, and they look at me, and there's both of my cats sleepily staring at me. And I just don't even know what to say. I'm just like, but if you're there, what was in there? And they just yawn at me in response to my cursing at them and my questions. And I get to the kitchen, and there's a whole bunch of stuff on the floor, like big heavy things and things that were previously positioned in a way that couldn't have just easily been knocked down. And that gave me a whole new rash of goosebumps. And I literally backed all the way up, backed up through the kitchen, backed up through the living room, backed all the way down to the hallway, backed into the living room, and backed my ass into bed. That was super scary. Yeah. So that was that. And then I could stop it here, but I guess I'll just continue on into the dream that I had after this. So after that, I went back to sleep, and I had a dream about this neighborhood that was in a forest, and everybody in the neighborhood was Native American or or indigenous peoples. And I'm walking along, saying hi to people walking down the street, saying hi to me, and then I notice a dog that I used to have that's decades been since he's been dead, and see some cats too. And I notice, wow, there's actually lots of critters that I once knew that have long since passed. Huh. And then I go back to this place that I'm staying at, and I'm just renting a room or staying temporarily in somebody's house, like some sort of Airbnb situation or something like that. And there are several sisters. There's the oldest one has this beautiful thick black hair that kind of floats around almost as if it was in water. She's very stern and has a lot of kind of dark, chaotic energy to her. She's not evil necessarily, but she's not someone you want to mess with or maybe even be friends with or involved with whatsoever. And then there's two other sisters, and they weren't in the dream. I was just aware of their existence. And then there's the youngest sister who I was sharing a room with. And she was very timid, very beat down seeming from this older sister, and very solemn and never made eye contact. And she was just very like, and after exploring this place, this neighborhood off and on, I went to the grocery store, I went to this and that, I did some things, and I again went back to the house. And the oldest sister is getting increasingly hostile towards me. And she's like, you're not supposed to be here, and I want you to leave. You need to leave, and you need to leave now. The sooner the better. Yesterday would be great. And Then she also um, she mentions something about the other woman, and then I was like, okay, I didn't pay attention to it because I have no idea what other guests are also in this place. And then uh, the the younger sister, who is still much older than me by decades, and she says something about how I would really like her. And then she mentions the name. She says Janine. And in real waking life, Janine is a very important person in my life. She taught me, she was my first tribal belly dance teacher back when I think I was 13, maybe 14. And so I've been dancing with her for a very long time. And she is Native American, and sorry, she's Native American, and um, she has a very interesting story, and I won't go into that. But I am like, wait, what? Janine is here, and the younger sister was like, yeah, she's staying, in the front of the house, and I'm like, what? I drop everything and I run down the house and I go into her room, and she is packing up her little roll along suitcase, and she's just all smiles, and this house is kind of like dank and dark a little bit, and but the room Janine is in, and like, she's surrounded by this aura, and it's not like an aura I've ever seen. It's clear, and it's not any color. It's just illumination, just a little bit more light. She was just like a little lamp, a little lamp of happiness. Um, and she's like, Liz! And she greets me, as she often does in real waking life. And she's laughing, her deep laughter that she has. And she gives me this hug, and she's like, how are you? I had no idea you were here. And she's laughing almost between each sentence she says. And she tells me a little bit about her stay there, and that she's ready to move on to her next place, which Janine in real waking life is moving to Hawaii. And she's a retired teacher, and I'm very excited. She's taking the next step into her life, and it's really big. And she also she was adopted, and she never knew her biological parents, and recently was reunited with them, and found out who they were. And so she's been reunited with her tribe, and she's actually going to go live on the res with them for the last few months before she makes the move to her new home in Hawaii. And in the dream, that's where she was going. She was packing her bags, she was done staying, and she was leaving. And so we say goodbye to each other. Then she goes out the door, and I am just so lifted up by this interaction. And there is this old uncle, and he is in the room, and he's got this really intense energy. It's very, very intensely neutral. That's a strange way to put it, but dream logic. Intensely neutral. I know that's kind of an oxymoron. So I round the corner to go back to my room, and the older sister, she's sitting there, and she's glaring at both of us, because it's not that she dislikes Janine. She just disapproves because she knows she can't control her, and that makes her uncomfortable and upset, probably fearful. But she's even more angry at this point. And then I notice that there is this trail of pennies. And she's like, look, there's pennies. Don't you want to pick them up? And she's kind of talking to me more than she's ever talked to me. And I get the strong feeling that she's the one that made this trail of pennies for me to follow. And I'm like, I don't give a damn about no damned old pennies. Clearly you're trying to like get me to follow the breadcrumb trail to some kind of something. You're trying to get me out of here. And no. So I go to the room where the younger sister is, and I tell her about the trail of pennies, and she goes, I love pennies. And she has this jar and dream logic. I'm not sure how to explain this because it was something that can't happen in a three-dimensional world. It was some 5D crazy shit. That's all I can say is her penny jar was like in the fifth dimension somehow. Which, I mean, if I had a 5D penny jar, I guess I would like collecting pennies too. So she starts collecting the pennies, and they do really weird things once they get into the jar. I've never seen anything like this in all of my probably thousands of dreams. So I leave that house because it's time for me to go. And I feel this sense of completion and satisfaction after seeing Janine and seeing her off and avoiding the pennies. Those two things made me feel very complete. So I leave of my own free will, and I'm still in the same realm, but I'm in a different part. And I guess I'm at this park, and it's this land of eternal summer, and there's rainbows in lots of places, and it's just the most beautiful, perfect little place. And there's children, and they're playing baseball, and I start playing with the children, and we're running around here and there. And um, there's this like there's this old shed that's been completely taken over by blackberries, and we lose one of the baseballs over there. And so we're all like climbing in and trying to get out and getting snagged by the blackberries and laughing about it. And um, they tell me some pretty wise things that unfortunately I can't remember. But they're all little kids, but they've got the little kid energy, and they're laughing and playing like little kids do. But there's something about them that is very not young. It's fascinating. And then at one point, a school bus comes in of more little kids, and there are two baseball teams. There's a baseball team of boys, and they're probably 10, 11, 12. And then there's all of their little sisters, and they're probably 7 to 9 or so. And I decide to play with the little girls because little boys are being like, go away, little sisters, you're gonna get hurt, because we're like going like all out with this baseball game. And the little girls were still kind of just getting their bearings. Yeah, and they were also very, very wise, and I don't know. So I play baseball with them, and I keep floating up in the air on accident. And I'm like, whoa, 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 hang on. I become lucid. I'm like, I know this is a dream, and I could float around and stuff, but I try to get back onto the ground. This is the first time like, I've had a hard time staying on the ground. It was the weirdest sensation. It was really cool, but I just kept floating up as if I was having difficulty with gravity problems. And so I was like, well, okay, I do kind of want to see what this place looks like. So I allow myself to be floated up like a bubble. And I have this great vantage point. I'm very high up in the air. And in the middle of this park, there's this massive tree. It looks like an oak tree, I guess. That's the best way I can explain it, because you know how a bare oak tree kind of looks like a brain, and it looks like all the brain stems and crazy things. That's what it reminds me of, at least. I'm sure I'm not the only one. There's this massive tree in the center of this place, and by massive I mean the trunk is the size of a large house. It's huge. And even though this is a land of summer and everything is in full bloom and it's warm outside and the grass is perfectly green, and there's dandelions in the grass and daffodils, and there's the blackberries are in full sway. They've got big fat blackberries, and like daffodils bloom in early March, and you don't get ripe blackberries until late August. So I took note of that, and I thought that was interesting. And this tree was super alive, like it was almost vibrating. You could feel its aliveness. um it was something to behold. And even though it was super alive, it didn't have a single leaf on it. And I thought that was very interesting, and there was something really important about this tree. And I stared at it a lot, and I watched the children playing baseball in the baseball diamond, and I looked beyond the baseball diamond, and there was like these sand dunes with what looked like a bunch of animal bones, like bird bones sticking out here and there, and there was like a seagull, and there was like some cow bones and just various critter bones. And then I went on, and behind the tree there was this very, very old sand castle. Not like a sand castle made out of molds. It was this, it looked almost, I don't know, it looked like it had been rained on a lot. It was very, very weathered, and it was so weathered by rain, most things were in a point, and there was lots of little entrances and things. And when you looked into an entrance or a window, it was like the blackest black you could possibly imagine, or the you possibly couldn't imagine. It was so black. And I thought that was interesting, but I was like, I don't think I'm supposed to go there. I'm not ready for that shit. Was a very specific thought I had. So I'm flying around, and I decide flying is great, and this is my favorite thing to do in dreams, is to fly around and see beautiful epic scenery. But I kind of stave off that urge because this interaction with the children is so amazing. I decide to go back there and play baseball with them again. And I'm there was more to that dream because those kids talked to me a lot, and they would just, be like playing little kid stuff, and they would like crack the baseball, and then they would say some like crazy wise shit to me, and I'd be like, what? And then they'd be like, da 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 da, did you see that ant hole? It's so cool. Look at this flower, it's so cool. I wonder if I could eat it. Do you want to eat it? And I'd be like, wait, what? Go back to that thing that you just said. And then they would just like giggle and then like run away. It was really cool. So those were my dreams the last couple of days. Bye.